So great, thank you. So let's get into it. My name is Brad Yao. I'm the sales manager here at Citation Group. Welcome to today's seminar, How AI is Changing ISO Certification. Before we start, just a few quick housekeeping items. If you've got questions throughout the session, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, not the chat. We'll be answering your questions at the end of the session. Don't wait until the end to submit. Drop them in as they come to you. And yes, this session is being recorded. We'll send the recording link to everyone after the session so you can revisit anything you'd like. We have quite a few people joining us today, which is great to see. I'm really glad that you've joined us today, and by the time we finish, you'll have a clearer understanding of the practical tools you can use to stay ahead. I'm delighted to introduce today's guest speaker, Candice Swayzen from Cax Corp. She's the founder and head systems architect at Cax Corp, a consultant agency that we work with. Drawing on decades of compliance expertise, Candice has founded Cax Corp in 2024. Her hands-on experience auditing 400 companies and developing systems for over 100 organizations, from startups to multi-vertical corporations, provides unparalleled insight into what differences differentiates businesses that thrive, and those that falter. This deep industry knowledge, combined with Cax Corp elite team of specialists and strategic network of industry-leading affiliates, enables the creation of comprehensive, tailored solutions that drive measurable results across every aspect of business performance. Her methodology exemplifies finesse over four sophisticated systems, rather than thinking operational intensity. This approach involves architecting precise infrastructure that generates Elysian work environments where teams excel while sustaining exponential organizational growth. So before we hand over to Candice for the presentation, just a little bit about us. Citation Group has been supporting Australian businesses for over 30 years across HR, workplace health and safety, quality assurance, and legal compliance. We work with thousands of businesses across the country, from small teams through to large enterprises, helping them stay compliant, manage risk, and build better workplaces. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, feel free to reach out after today's session, and we can help you with that. So today we're featuring Citation Certification. With 30 years of experience, Citation has guided thousands of successful organizations through the complexities of the certification. We can help you stand out for having best-in-class processes, win more tenders, and see your businesses grow. Whether your goal is to improve health and safety, cut your carbon footprint, or protect information security, we can help you achieve that. So today's agenda, let's run through what we've got in store for your day. We'll start by looking at where AI is actually landing in management systems and certification right now. From there, we'll get into some of the common mistakes businesses are making when they bring AI into the process, and then we'll flip it and look at what good practice looks like. So AI is actually working for you instead of against you. After that, we'll share the results from our live poll and wrap it up with Q&A. So start thinking your questions now, and drop them in as we go. And finally, we'll close out with a special citation offer for anyone attending today. So that's it for me now. Over to you, Candice.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brad, for that introduction. Sometimes hearing what you've done back is good to hear. Okay, so the theme of today's webinar is to give you an idea of how to take advantage of AI without being taken advantage of. We'll dig into more of what that means as we go through today's session. But it's a real focus on how AI is changing the certification industry. When we talk about the certification industry, we're really talking about how your business functions and how you manage the systems across your business, and then as a result affecting the certification industry. So as we go throughout today, I really want you to think of today as not so much how it's going to affect my certification on the day, but how it's going to affect my management system and then in turn affect the certification industry. So I want you to leave today with three things. There's endless amount of information around AI, and there's endless things that I could talk about. I'm very passionate about AI and how it pertains to management systems. The first is what AI is really doing to management systems and certification. The second is how to set AI up, the basics, so that will work well for you. And third is a bit of what not to do, why most people use AI in the worst way possible, and how we can kind of turn that around. So first is the good news, right? I always like to start with the good news, but one of the best things about AI and its effect on certification, is that it's really dropped the barrier to entry for your small to medium-sized businesses. So certification can be quite an expensive process if you are a small to medium-sized business and you have some tight margins. If you're in like construction, for example, and a lot of the time people really have to wait quite some time until they can afford certification. It's also dropped the barrier of time. AI is great for the administrative tasks that come with certification. So I really want to make it clear that we're going to go through some issues, but this is a really good thing that we can use AI for your small to mediums, but also for your large businesses to be more effective. But it's really dropping that entry level to be more accessible to more people. And then that will make more businesses better. The more businesses we can get that have solid management systems that can be reviewed by that qualified person and pass, and the earlier we can do that, the better off every industry is. And AI is really driving that right now. So there's really three main things that we're seeing right now in certification. So I see both sides of the table. I'll build systems, but I also still audit systems. So I get both sets of information from both the consulting leg and we also what people are seeing at the other end of certification when you're going through audit. So what we're seeing a lot of now is consultants being undercut because AI can do that, right? I don't need you to build me a system. I can chuck a prompt into AI and it'll build it for me. So the oversimplification of the process is causing this undercutting of expertise in the industry. Then we're seeing an accentuation, we'll go more into that, of a current problem, but systems that are never applied. So ones that really look finished, but they're really just gathering dust. And then finally, we're seeing a lot of AI slop as auditors. There's a lot of information coming through that is very obviously AI, which it's not a problem that it's AI, but when it's AI slop and it's long and extensive, it creates a lot of additional work for the auditor and not a lot of value for people actually running the system. So those are the three main issues that we're seeing right now in the certification industry with AI. So the first one, which we'll break this down a bit more, but that AI can do that attitude. AI is constantly advertised as this shortcut to building a system. It's constantly advertised as a shortcut to doing everything. And can it make life easier? Absolutely, it can make life easier. But what it can't do is do everything from scratch. And I'll explain how that works. But AI needs proper sources. You can't just chuck a prompt into AI and it builds you an effective system. You need to know how to actually do that, for one, but also you need the expertise behind it still. So we need to use AI in collaboration with expertise, and that is the ultimate marriage of how we can take advantage of AI, but still have it be effective within our businesses. So as auditors, we're really seeing a lot of very polished documentation. AI can produce extensive documentation very, very quickly. And it can be perfectly formatted and it looks very shiny. But if you've audited any system, you know that any system that is working well needs a little grime on it, need a little grit behind it so that you know that it's actually effective, because people are using it. It's breaking and it's being fixed, and it's breaking and it's being fixed. AI looks very, very shiny. Sometimes a scribbled on piece of paper that gets used every day is better than technology that never gets used. If you have to choose one or the other, you're going to choose that scribbled up piece of paper. Then we're seeing a lot of AI slop, a lot of AI language, a lot of M dashes, a lot of overbuilt systems. So AI, for example, it will give you a near miss register and an incident register and a hazard register. It will not register that anything is a combined process, because it's a very literal code-based practice. So we're seeing a lot of overbuilt systems that are based on potentially industry, but definitely not customized to a business, and just overwritten, just very overwritten, because the AI can produce a 70-page document in 2 minutes. When someone builds a system themselves and they have to type it out, they're not going to build a system that long. But also, it doesn't really understand the human nature without you giving it context. So it will see a document as fulfilling all of the standard clause requirements, but it won't see the user experience at the end unless you are doing it in a very specific way. Which brings me to the point of systems have always needed to be human focused, not document focused. So what we're seeing is a lot of document focused systems. It's systems that are assembled potentially in a panic for the audit, because AI kind of is an easy way to get your document structure in place before audit without implementation. But what happens when you do that is it's not built on what we call a human-centric or a human-focused design. All technology, everything from a laptop to a power drill, needs to be human-focused. It is a tool to make a person's life or a person's job easier, better, faster. So the documents are not the system. The system lives with, it's a portion, but the system lives with the people, what they understand and how they use the documentation. Okay, so this is a little bit of a hard truth for us consultants out there. We've actually, we are not blameless, because a lot of what AI is doing is just an accentuation and an exaggeration of what already exists in the industry. So AI is just learning from the information that is already out there. So your generic document packs, there's been some kind of horror stories in the industry of people paying a lot of money to get a system. They get a generic document pack, They say, fill this out and you'll have a system. And then that's the same position that you're being put in when you're doing that with AI. You're just buying, it's just a kind of another way of getting a doc pack and then expecting it to be an effective system. But that exists out there and exists on the internet in particular. And that's where AI is getting its information from. And then you've also got AI self-training and a lack of understanding. So there is a certain amount of hallucination that comes with AI, and there is a certain level of human oversight that's required. So, and we'll talk a little bit about the cycle in a minute. We'll just pop to the next slide. So the two real problems we're seeing is, one, the missing knowledge, that people don't understand what they're reading. Most people will prompt the AI, they'll read the first couple of paragraphs, they'll give the system a quick once over and say, oh, look, it did a great job. And they don't understand anything that the system says or what it does in practice. And then the second problem is the worst possible use of AI. And I know I've been digging into some issues, but I am going to give you some solutions, I promise. But right now, people are using AI in the worst way because there's just a lack of education around how to use AI in the best way. Okay, so what AI does is it takes a prompt, it scrapes the information, it makes assumptions, and then it returns you an output. So the big problem we're seeing is someone goes to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool you're using, or Gemini, and they put in a 2 to 3 sentence prompt saying, build me a management system that's compliant to ISO 45001 and for maybe the particular industry, right? What then happens is the AI will scrape. It's called scraping. It will scrape and then the internet, essentially the entire internet for research. And it has its limitations, but it will go and scrape all the information that it can find on the internet about ISO 45001 systems, your industry, and it will make assumptions, right? So it makes assumptions from that information. So you might be a small business, and then it creates you a system that is of, let's say you're 15 people, and it will go and make you a system that works for 200 people. And now we all know that the system that a 10-person business or 15-person business needs is not the same system that a 200-person business needs. So prompting as a skill is becoming more and more predominant for this reason, but also connection to the source, which we'll talk about a bit more, which is providing appropriate sources for the prompt to scrape, so that when you get the return, it's a bit more focused on your company, your needs, and you can have a better and more usable output. But when you're just prompting the AI, letting it scrape the internet, letting it make assumptions about your business, and then using the returned output, this is what being taken advantage of by AI is. It's just a tool that is adding something into your business that is probably going to be a little bit unwanted. And hard to use, and you're going to be in a thing together trying to fulfill all the requirements of this very large, very bureaucratic system that's been built from a computer based on assumptions about your business from things that don't apply. apply to your business. Slide, please. Okay, so you're probably thinking, okay, Candice, I know all these problems. You've explained them to me in depth. I have a bit of an understanding of how these problems come about, but how do I actually use AI to my advantage rather than getting stuck in this prompting, scraping, doom loop? So the first thing you need to know is, well, the first thing AI needs to know is what information to pull from. Then you need to build skills around it, and then you can start to build drivers. A lot of people really want to skip to the agent right now because the agent sounds like, oh, they're going to do my work for me a little bit, which they can, but you need to do steps one and two first. Next one, please. Okay, so first you need to start with the people, right? We call this the Elysian work environment at Cax Corp. It's human-centric design first. So we don't go document first. We find solutions for people. So we want to work with people over paperwork, have systems that actually scale. So something that is not going to cause kind of you to do more work for less outcome. So doing more with less. And then having a culture around something that sticks. So those are the three components that we need to start with before we even start to look at AI. If you don't have a really good human-centric company, you need to sit down and sit with yourself and go, okay, are we a document process focused company that neglects people? Because if you are that, AI is just going to make you more of what you are, right? AI is kind of like money. It doesn't make you better. It just makes you more of what you are. So if you are not putting that people first forward, then AI is not going to work for you. I'm yet to see, like, we see it out on social media and things like that. Oh, I run my company on 8 AI bots or AI agents. I'm yet to see a company actually do that successfully, especially if you're in a company that needs certification, because we are highly regulated. It's likely that we're very highly regulated. You're in mining or construction or medical devices. These just are not industries where you can have a neglection of people or a neglection of expertise. So keeping that in mind as we go through this process, and you'll see the design that I'm going to walk you through starts with the people first. All right. So drawing on that, we first need to have competent people. So when you look at your business from a people perspective, AI is no different. Everyone who's in the business needs to understand the system, and AI actually becomes part of your system, not the system. So not only do people need to understand your system, but they need to understand how to use AI before you can actually start to implement. So before you even kind of start to build anything, you need to get your team some education on what AI is and how it works. This webinar is obviously a great start, but there's plenty of resources you can use. You can obviously reach out to Cax Corp, of course, but you need to learn how AI works in depth before you start to build it. But you need to have that internal competence. You need not just one person running prompts. You need to look at it holistically and how it's going to affect your business. All right. Another thing to remember before you start building AI for your management system is that certification is the floor, it's not the end goal. You need to find a reason beyond certification to implement a management system for it to work. Because most people, when they go out and they prompt AI and they get this whatever system it creates, they're just doing whatever they can to get the certification. And the certification is great, it's verifiable, but there's plenty of people that have certification that are not using it for its purpose. And it really can be a time and money suck on the business if you don't have a reason beyond certification to want to build a management system. And AI will just exemplify whatever your attitude is towards that management system. So when that, you need to be using it to improve yourself time and again to actually build a system that will work, and then AI can enable that. But before you've got your people, you're looking at from a people-centric perspective. Now you need to look at what do I want out of my business, and how does certification help me do that? How does this system structure and the plan, do, check, act structure actually benefit me beyond having the certification to submit for my tender or whatever I'm using it for? Okay, so into the nitty-gritty stuff now, probably the thing everyone's been waiting for, which is, how do I actually set up an AI system? So you see, we start with knowledge of people in the center. The people will always pull the strings of AI. It's just how it'll work, because we need to have that expertise in the center. Then we have our software and information sources, which is the next layer of what information is the AI going to pull from, and where is it going to come from, and where is it going to put it. Then we have our skills and process. So this is essentially teaching AI how to do a process, how you do things, so that it can take up some of the load. And then if you're really advanced in AI, you can start to use agents, which is where you have those processes automatically running with a agent. I've got about 5 agents now. Some of them do inbox triage. Some of them do lead qualification or research behind lead qualification. So in your system, you can have agents that will keep track of your assets and things like that, and send reminders to relevant team members. There's a myriad of things you can do with agents. But if you don't do work from inside to out, the AI will produce sloppy, not useful content and activities where you will have to go back and fix the agent's work. So it's really important that you start in the center and you work your way out. Okay. So there's a few things we want to talk about that I want to give you as far as definitions. There is your stack. So your stack is, or your tech stack. Your stack is what software you are going to use in your business. So often what we do is we go, okay, I've got Microsoft for emails and things like that. Maybe you've got a bit of a SharePoint. And then I'm going to buy ChatGPT, and then I'm going to buy Manus, and then you start to collect lots of different subscriptions to platforms, right? Whatever they may be. Often we can go into a business and they'll have 3 different types of project management software. This can be very wasteful and expensive, but also it doesn't really consider how those different softwares talk to each other and how they speak back to the AI. Claude Cowork is really dominant in the industry right now because it is so good at connecting to the other tech stacks and then talking to each other. So You need to understand what software you're going to use and what you're going to use each one for before you start to actually build the next level, which is skills. Skills, the definition of skills is just a computer learned process. So it's basically just when you teach an AI how to do something that you would normally do. And then finally, we have agents. Agents are a pseudo human that uses skills and stacks to do the job for you. And you can kind of talk to them like they're if you imagine Jarvis from Iron Man, he is an agent, a very, very advanced technical agent. We're not quite there yet, but if you're wondering what an agent is, that's what it is. It's something you can interact with that's been pre-taught skills and can interact with your stack. Okay, so just to break that down, we start with the knowledge or the brain, right? We need to collect the information that we want AI to pull from. That can be a set of documents in a folder that the AI can tap into. It can be a series of links and information. It can be standards. It can be any information that you would generally use for your business that you want it to pull from, so that the AI is not pulling from the zeitgeist of the internet, because we want to use our expertise to narrow down the information. There are some tasks that require a broad stroke, and that's fine. But if you're asking AI to do a process for you, you want it to do that process from a knowledge base, how your business speaks, what's your brand, what are your operating principles, right? And that's where a lot of AI slop language comes from. So you're giving that baseline knowledge about your company, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, and you're giving the AI a brain. Then you need to have a strategy, right? Having AI, if you have not sat down and written a strategy for your business, there is absolutely no point in implementing AI. You need to understand the information and the strategy before you start to try and build a management system at all, let alone build a system with AI. Then you get your stack, you know your strategy, you know what you want to do, you know what information it needs to pull from. Now you can select a really good stack. You can say, okay, I need to have something that will support our warehouse manufacturing, but I also want something that will connect to Claude Cowork, because that connects to our Xero, which also connects to our Salesforce or our HubSpot or whatever our sales team is using, all the way through to our technical control. What are they using? So, and can we combine that information? Because obviously, if you can reduce your tech stack, it's one, much more affordable, but two, it's much less to maintain, and it can speak to each other much better. Then you build your skills. What do you actually want the AI to do for you, right? What do you actually want it to take off your plate? Then you teach it how to do that. Once it knows how to do that, and you've run that a fair few times, you might think of putting on an agent that will actually do that. So every month, I would like you to look at the status of our incidents and give me a report on which incidents have been closed out, which ones need to be closed out, and who is responsible for closing them out. That's a good example of what an agent could do for you. Okay, so I think we're going to go to some live poll results now.
Thanks, Kenneth, for a wonderful presentation. It's had a lot of practical takeaways for everybody. Job well done. Before we finish up, let's get into the questions. And I wanted to look back at the poll we ran at the start of the session. So looking at the polls that that was answered by the attendees, or by you as attendees, right? 78% of attendees are already using AI in their operations, with 41% of you saying that you're using AI regularly. 59% of the attendees are already certified, and 41% are still on the certification journey. And those that are not certified, the biggest barriers are complexity and cost. So based on these poll results, AI is already well established among the attendees, with 78% using AI in their operations and 43% using it regularly as part of their day-to-day activities. This highlights that AI is rapidly becoming a standard business tool rather than an emerging technology, which I think, Candice, you'll agree with.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
From a certification perspective, 59% of attendees are already certified, while 41% are still working towards certification. Among those yet to become certified, the most commonly identified barriers are the perceived complexity of the certification process and the associated cost, indicating that organisations are looking for practical and cost-effective pathways to achieving certification. So, with the presentation today, it certainly indicates that AI can be a huge part of building the program, but as Candice has rightly pointed out, there is still a very, very, very big human element to building the AI, building the management system and utilizing AI properly. And Candice, you may want to elaborate on that a little bit further.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's very fair because being AI is the new .com boom, and everybody, for the people who missed the last one, everybody's trying to get in and build, and there's a lot of products out there that some are very good, some are quite disappointing, and it can be organizational change can be a very complex and expensive process, if not, especially if it's not done properly. So it's definitely, people are right to think that, because it's more that there's so much information out there about it. One thing is that CACSWAP is about 50% developers and 50% consultants. So we're kind of an unusual mix of at our firm. And actually, some of my developers get a little bit upset about the fact that it's even called AI, because they say it's actually not intelligent. It's just an advanced version of computing. So it's really become this marketing buzzword to say how, like, AI, and I think it does have its definition. Sometimes I get into it with my dads about that, but it can feel very complex. And if you don't do that work at the beginning of the process and understand where you're going, what you're doing, and get your team to have a keen understanding of how AI works and how, and try not to see all the ads coming through on the feed, and actually do some real market research on your stack, then it becomes far clearer, far clearer. So I've done a couple of implementations that have only required really a three software stack, and people are shocked. But it's about selecting the right products and the right AI products for your business, not what comes up the most on your feed.
Thanks, Candice, for that great explanation. So we're going to jump into some questions and answers now. And the first question came very, very early in the session, which is about getting a copy of the presentation. So we will be sending out a link to all of the people that attended of the presentation, that you can look at your own leisure, and have we look at it whenever you need to. So that will be coming out after the presentation. The second question is there any training to better use AI for the purpose of maintaining certification or to speed up work in an efficient manner?
There is training, but I would say it's one of those things where it's very if you want specific information that's actually going to help you, because there's plenty of information out there about implementing AI. You can kind of go on YouTube and you'll find it'll pour out of your ears. But what we're seeing is because AI is so specific to a particular business, and like we said, sometimes people even go into AI and go, "How do I get training in AI?" Which is not a bad way to do it. You can actually go to Claude and say, "This is the type of business that I have. Ask me questions to," and that's a really good advice to tell the AI to ask you questions about your own business that it needs to be specific. So you can actually use AI as a little training tool to speak back to you and say, all right, I need to know your industry. I need to know how big you are. I need to, and ask it to be very in depth and say, I want you to teach me something every day about how to use AI. That's a really great way of learning a lot about it. But as far as training for a particular industry, I don't think that the industry is that advanced yet for a really good training to come out. And it's one of those things that's very customizable. So just like ISO, you can go and get training for ISO. Of course, you can go and get training for ISO, but is it going to apply specifically to your business? Not particularly. You're just going to learn more about ISO. It's really much better to get some more specific advice about where you're at and where you want to be with it, and then get some more specific guidance.
Thanks, Candice. Another question is, can I have my AI consume the ISO IEC standard without breaching copyright?
Oh, that's a good question. If you that I mean, I can't answer that legally specifically as to whether as I would, sorry, whether the, what is it called, the people own the ICC,
Standards Australia.
Standards Australia. Yeah, I can't answer specifically that question. So I feel like I would be doing a disservice to people to say,
let's
but I can most definitely find out for everyone.
Yeah. Okay, another question is, I'm discovering that using AI is a real skill. Quality and usefulness of response is very dependent on the quality of the prompts. Any recommendations for training resources around learning to prompt to prevent lots of back and forth with the AI tool?
Yes. So prompting is fast becoming a very real skill for positions in a business because there is real power in your prompt. So, as to just basic advice, the first thing with the prompt you want to do is tell tell them who, I say them, tell the software who you want it to be, right? I need you to be a I need you to be my consultant for ISO 9001. I need you to be this. Then you need to give it your current state. So, what you're in right now, and then the future state of what you want to be. So, I'm currently in this position. I want to be in this position. And then you give it as much context as you can, right? As far as background information, things like that. That's where the brain really comes in handy, having that brain for your business as the background for the prompt to actually pull from. So it has some solid information about who you are, what you do, what your business is, what services you provide, where you are. And then you can ask it the question or ask it what you want it to do. So that's a really basic framework. As far as if you're asking quite a simple question, right? If you want to actually, there is prompts and then there's the source of the prompts, which is your tech stacks and your brain and your skills that will really accelerate AI actually being able to help you meaningfully.
Thanks, Candice. So another question here, can you give a real example of what AI slop looks like in practice and how an audit actually picks up on it.
Yes. Yes. That's a great. I mean, I think we're all becoming pretty attuned to AI and what it looks like and how um I suppose like how anti-human it can sound. Like obviously there's things like your M dashes and um, grammatic structures that a person just wouldn't use that make it quite obvious. But what really shows that a system is built on AI in um, a sloppy way is that there's just too much documentation. There's just way too much. You've got got like huge manuals, you've got a procedure for everything that probably could have been combined into one procedure and one practice. Those procedures tend to have more document control within the procedure than it does instruction. It creates registers on forms for because it's just gone. This is the clause, this is what I've pulled from the internet as to how you could control that clause, and then it's given it to you in a package. So it's really the bloat of the system that makes it really obvious that it's AI.
Great. Thanks for that, Candice. Another question. For a business that's already gone the wrong way and started with prompts and agents, what does it look like to walk that back and rebuild from the center?
Yeah. So I always say with any change in a business, it's easy to change a process. It's much harder to change the way that people perceive the work. Like if somebody's been doing something the same way, to change that is much harder. Um, Now, there's a lot of fear when it comes to AI as well, right? So I just want to touch on that before I answer the question. So there's kind of this fear, especially from middle manage, like you've got senior managers. Most senior managers like, yes, this is going to be so operationally efficient. There's so much opportunity. We want to take advantage. We want to get it on the front foot, right? Then you have your middle managers that have kind of a fear of taking blame and being replaced kind of in the middle. So when you start to implement AI, a lot of people are worried that they're going to train the AI and then it's going to replace their job, which you really have to address early, right? Especially if they're already using AI, they're like, okay, well, I'm already using it. So are you changing it so that you can kind of replace me? And then I'm working myself out of a job. But it's really important to bring the right people on early. And when you're forming that brain and you're forming your strategy, making sure you're bringing people into that process, getting their feedback early so they feel like they're part of the process. If because some people might be using AI in your business really well, and you want to make sure you get that information from them and get them to teach everybody else something about how to use it well. So it needs to be a collaborative approach, just like every type of change. I would say that's probably most people's situation right now, that people are using AI in a very ad hoc manner rather than in a systemic and planned manner. But bring them in early, see, have that North Star to say, this is what we want to achieve out of implementing AI, and come on the journey with us and help us to, what have you learned from it? Let's look at these products together. Uh, that's generally with any change, you have to do that.
Thanks, Candice. A really good question has just come up. Once we have ISO certification, and it has in the past been the goal, but we really want it seen as the floor so all staff get involved and see the benefit. How do we use AI to help build culture that sticks? Love that term you use, by the way. We want to build on a floor of certification to improve output, improve evidence-based safety, and improve sustainable, measurable, consistent quality. And how
Mhm.
can AI play in a part of building that culture?
Yeah, I love that because you've taken the first step of wanting it to be more than just a certification. I always say, like, just because you have a license doesn't make you a good driver. So you've taken the first good step to say, all right, I really want this to be more. Now, one thing that you can do at the beginning is um, find the kind of framework that you think is really good. So if you will find companies that you think you would like to model yourself, because usually everything, nothing's new under the sun. So you can actually use AI to research how those companies function. And then how does that actually apply back to certification? So a lot of and the standard itself. So a lot of the time we will miss the point of a specific requirement. So when we look at, and I'm going to get very deep here because this is obviously a question from someone who's well into certification and understands it and wants to advance it. When we look at, for example, objectives, right, and we look at, say, safety or quality objectives, when I go into a business and I see that those objectives are based on document review levels, or they're based on the monitoring and internal audit register being completed, those are not objectives that are going to support the outcomes of your business. So, really looking at that top end from context through to planning and saying, is this actually the formation of a business plan? Because that's what those sections are supposed to be, the formation of a business plan that's going to get the result for our customer or for our people and their safety. Is it actually a reflection of what we would like from them? And you can use AI to bolster your research in that, and do some really in-depth research that you may not have had the time, effort, skills, or money to do before. So the first step is always to look at your strategy, always to look at your people and say, are these the people who can drive the culture, that can drive a system that moves beyond the status quo of the basics of certification? Hopefully I answered that well. There was a lot of questions in there, but whoever that was, I'm happy to. Yeah.
Thanks, Candice. That's basically all the time we've got to for the questions today, but we have got a couple we haven't managed to answer, but we will get back to the people individually, and again, we get those answered for them. Okay, so we have a great offer today, and based on the questions for our live audience today, it sounds like some of you are starting to think about these matters in your own business. And we have a special offer where you can receive up to $1,800 off your certification package when you get started this month. We'd love to assist you and help you along that journey. So simply scan the QR code on the screen, or if you're on mobile, you can click through using the link that will be posted shortly in the chat box. I'm now going to wait a moment or so before I pass over to Candice to talk a bit more about CACS Corp. Candice, you're on.
Amazing. Fantastic. So I'm as Brad introduced, I'm the head systems architect at CACS Corp. I started it a couple of years ago. But a big thing about CACS Corp is that we are not traditional consulting. We are very much a company that is modernized for the future. Obviously, that's why I'm here talking about AI. But we always we work to what we call the listening work environment. So human-centric systems that aren't built for causes, but for people that have to run the system, and for the success of the business. So as I kind of mentioned before, we are not a traditional team structure either. We have a mix of what we call system architects, which are the specialists in ISO and HACCP through to ESG. We've got our experts in that, and then they work with a team of developers and data engineers to actually build management systems into your structure. So our program is called ISO 1. Anyone, there's a QR code there. You can actually, there was a couple of questions here that we didn't get to answer. So if you scan that QR code, you can schedule a 1-hour free consultation with one of our system architects and a data engineer to have a look at where you're at right now and see where you want to be. And we call those, they are advice sessions. You will get some free consultation in there. It's not just to see if you want to work with us, but we just genuinely want to help people get better at this. So you can scan that and have a look at what we do. But ISO 1 is our program where we do the digital transformation and AI transformation of organizations, whether you've already got certification and you want to step into that space, or if you are brand new into certification. But we can actually build our management systems at a similar cost to most people's standard management systems. So I know that we talked about the perception of cost. I highly recommend you reach out to us and just have a look at what that looks like, because the way that we've been able to set our company up, we can actually build systems for just as cost effective to implement digital-based systems as it is to implement paper-based systems. So yeah, reach out. I'd love to chat to everyone, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Candice. So that's all we have time for today, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope you got a lot out of it, and thank you, Candice, for a wonderful session with such valuable information. As I mentioned, we'll send through the recording link out to everyone, so keep an eye on your inbox. And if you have any further questions or you'd like to chat about how we can help, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you again, everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon.